I realized something was wrong when my neighbor waved at me. Not because he waved, because he used my name. Mason, he said, smiling like we'd spoken 100 times. I slowed down in the hallway, keys still in my hand. The word hung in the air longer than it should have. Mason. Familiar. Intimate. Incorrect. Hey, I replied automatically. Muscle memory. Politeness kicking in before logic. His name was Aaron. Or Adam. Something with an A. Mid-30s. Lived 2 doors down. We'd nodded before. Shared an elevator once. Talked about the weather. Nothing more than that. No names. No conversations long enough to justify memory. I got your mail again, he said. Again. He held out an envelope. Plain white. My name typed neatly across the front. No logo, no return address. I took it. Thanks. No problem, he said. You know how it is. I didn't. Inside my apartment, I locked the door and stayed there, forehead against the wood, listening to my own breathing settle. The envelope felt warm in my hand, like it hadn't traveled far, like it had been carried intentionally. It was a medical bill. Not overdue, not urgent, just informational. A routine visit summary from a clinic I'd never been to. But the insurance was mine. Correct provider, correct policy number, correct formatting, correct language, wrong life. I sat down slowly, the way you do when your body understands something before your brain agrees to accept it. I told myself it was a clerical error, a system glitch, a coincidence stacked on another coincidence until it looked intentional. I called the clinic number printed at the bottom. A woman answered after 2 rings. Bright voice, scripted warmth. Good afternoon, Lakeshore Family Medicine. Hi, I said. I'm looking at a visit summary under my name, but I've never been there. A pause. Keyboard clicks. Can I get your date of birth? I hesitated. Not because I didn't know it, because giving it felt like stepping into a trap I could already see. I gave it anyway. Okay, Mason, she said, like we were already familiar. I see the visit. 2, actually. That's not possible. She didn't argue. She didn't sound surprised. Do you want to verify your address on file? She read an address in Connecticut I'd never lived at. And the phone number we have is ending in 4162. My number. My throat tightened. How is that possible if I've never been there? Another pause. More clicks. Well, she said gently, the patient was checked in with ID and insurance. It was verified. Verified. That word again, as if systems were living creatures that could vouch for someone. I hung up without saying goodbye. At work, I tried to bury it. Emails, meetings, coffee. My fingers moving like nothing had changed, but my attention kept sliding away from screens and back to that single fact. Someone could walk into a clinic as me, and no one would blink. On my lunch break, I opened my insurance portal. There were claims I hadn't filed. Small ones. Copays, lab work, prescription consultations. Not dramatic, not fraudulent in the obvious way. Just lived in, like someone else was quietly keeping my body maintained. That afternoon, I watched myself in the bathroom mirror. The fluorescent lighting made my face look pale and slightly wrong, like I was seeing a version of me that belonged to a different apartment, a different routine. I pressed my fingertips to the counter until my knuckles whitened. When I got home, the lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and warm air from the vents. Dean was at the desk, or the person I'd been calling Dean in my head. Late 30s, pressed shirt, calm face. The kind of guy you trust because he never needs anything. Evening, Mason, he said. I stopped. He knew my name, too. Hey, I said, because that's what you do when you're being watched and you don't want the watching to become obvious. Packages for you, he said, nodding toward the package room. I hadn't ordered anything. I walked in anyway, because leaving would have meant admitting fear in public. 3 boxes sat on the shelf, all addressed to me. Correct unit, correct spelling, same clean label format. The smallest box contained a replacement debit card. Not my bank. Another issuer. My name embossed in silver. Activation sticker still attached. In the elevator, my reflection looked like someone trying not to panic, like a person rehearsing calm for an audience. In my apartment, I called the number on the back of the card. Automated menu, then a representative. May I have your full name? Mason Hart. Date of birth? I hesitated again. She already had it. She had to, or else none of this made sense. I gave it. Thank you, she said. Can you confirm the address we have on file? Connecticut again. And for security, can you confirm the last 4 of your social? My stomach dropped. I didn't say anything. She read it anyway. The last 4 were correct. I ended the call. The silence after I hung up felt heavy, like the apartment itself had been listening. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed and listened to the building. Pipes knocking. Someone's TV through the wall. A laugh that cut off too abruptly. Elevator cables humming somewhere behind drywall. Normal sounds, arranged like camouflage. By Friday, alerts started. Credit pull. New account inquiry. Another issuer. Another. I spent lunch breaks freezing accounts and filing reports. Every voice on the phone sounded tired, mildly irritated that my life required their attention. It happens, one guy said. Just lock everything down. I did. I changed passwords, enabled two-factor, added authenticator apps. I tightened everything until my online world felt like a sealed container. I told myself, I've handled it. Then the building app sent a notification. Delivery confirmed. Handed to resident. 2:14 p.m. At 2:14 p.m., I'd been in a conference room. On camera, 12 witnesses. My face recorded in a grid of small rectangles on a screen. I opened the app history. There were more. Handed to resident. Handed to resident. Handed to resident. Different days. Different times. Always when I wasn't home. I went downstairs and waited at the desk until Dean looked up. Hey, I said. Quick question. Sure, he said, voice steady. The app says packages were handed to me, but I wasn't here. He didn't hesitate. Didn't look confused. That happens, he said. Drivers mark it that way to close out their routes. They leave them in the package room. Can we check cameras? Dean leaned back slightly. Relaxed. Like he'd answered this before. Footage is handled by management. Who has access? Management. Security contractor. Sometimes the super. I watched his face. Nothing cracked. You okay? He asked, and his concern landed perfectly. Too perfectly. Identity theft, I said. His expression softened with practiced sympathy. That's rough. Want me to keep an eye out? Yes, I said. And I hated how relieved I sounded. Like I'd been waiting for someone to offer protection. That weekend, I bought a peephole camera. One that fit into the existing hole. Small. Discreet. It showed a clean little rectangle of my hallway. I installed it Sunday night and tested it 3 times. Empty hallway. Good. A neighbor walking past. Good. Me stepping out and back in. Good. Monday morning on the train, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I opened the feed. The hallway was empty. Then the image adjusted. Someone stepped into frame. Tall. Dark hoodie. Baseball cap pulled low. Moving with the ease of someone who belonged there. Not rushing. Not sneaking. Belonging. They stopped at my door. Leaned in close enough for the camera to catch a strip of skin above the mask. Their hand reached for the knob. It turned. My door opened. Not forced. Opened. They stepped inside. The feed went black. I stared at my phone until my fingers went numb. Then I called the police. By the time I got home, my apartment was untouched. Nothing missing. Nothing moved. No sign of entry. The officer walked through like he was doing me a favor. Locks weren't compromised, he said. They opened it, I said. I saw it. He shrugged. Then someone had a key. I didn't give anyone a key. He gave me a look that said, people say that all the time. He left. That night I changed the locks. I paid extra for a deadbolt that felt solid in my hand. Heavy. Real. Something I could touch and trust. For 2 days, nothing happened. No alerts, no notifications, no weird mail. I started to breathe again. Then Wednesday morning, I got another motion alert. The hallway feed showed a man standing at my door. Not masked, not hooded. He wore a pressed shirt. Dean. He looked directly into the camera like he knew it was there. Then he lifted his hand and knocked. My phone buzzed. Delivered to resident. I was at work, but the app said it anyway, with the same confidence as always. That evening, I tested the lock 3 times before bed. Click, click, solid. At 2:03 a.m., I woke up to a sound in the hallway. Not a bang, not a crash. A quiet, polite scrape, like someone sliding something thin against something metal. I didn't move. I barely breathed. The sound stopped. Silence. Then another sound. Softer. A key turning. My body went ice cold. It couldn't be a key. I'd changed the lock. I'd watched the installer. I'd held the new keys in my hand. The door didn't open, but the sound was real. The twist. The click. Like someone testing the boundary and deciding not to cross it. Yet. The next day, my neighbor waved again. Same guy. Same A-name. Mason, he said, cheerful. You good? Yeah, I lied. He smiled wider, like we shared something. You know, he said, leaning a little closer, lowering his voice like he was about to give advice. You should really stop fighting it. Makes things messy. My stomach dropped. What? He blinked. confused for half a second. Then he laughed. I mean, the building stuff, the management, they're a pain. You'll give yourself an ulcer. He walked away, whistling. I stood there in the hallway with my keys in my hand, realizing that my life was leaking into other people's mouths. That night, I opened my phone contacts. My emergency contact had changed. Daniel Carter. I didn't recognize the name, but the number was the one that had left the voicemail. I clicked it. A photo popped up. A contact image. It was my face. Not a selfie I'd taken. Not a cropped profile picture. A professional-looking headshot with a neutral background. Me, smiling slightly, the way you do when you want to look trustworthy. I dropped the phone like it burned. I sat on the couch and forced myself to do something I'd been avoiding. I Googled Daniel Carter with my name. Nothing obvious, so I searched the number. It belonged to a healthcare administration firm, a patient advocacy service, a company that helped people manage appointments, insurance, finances, a company that could support individuals struggling with life organization. I stared at the screen. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Mason, the voice said. Calm, professional, familiar now. Who are you? A soft exhale. Almost amused. This is Daniel, he said. We need to talk. You're exhausting yourself. Stop, I said. Stop using my information. Silence for a beat. Then, it's not your information, he said gently. It's our file. My file? Yes, he said, and you keep disrupting it. My mouth went dry. What do you want? I want you to understand, he said. You're not the first version that didn't adapt. I don't know what that means. You do, he said. You feel it every time someone calls you by your name like it's not yours anymore. I couldn't speak. He continued, voice smooth. You think you're being stolen from, but you're being maintained. Your appointments, your accounts, your consistency. The systems need stability. I'm a person. So am I, Daniel said, and I'm better at being you than you are right now. I hung up. I threw the phone across the couch. It landed face down, buzzing. Buzzing again. Account activation successful. I didn't remember activating anything. I opened the bank app. My primary email had been updated. I opened my email. A new filter had been created. Messages with keywords like security, alert, verification were being auto-archived into a folder named Receipts. Receipts. I checked the folder. Hundreds of notifications. Old ones. Weeks old. Months. I hadn't seen them. Someone had been sorting my life quietly, like filing papers. I sat there until my hands stopped shaking enough to move. Then I went to the building office on the first floor. Management. A woman behind a glass window looked up. Hi, she said. How can I help you? My name is Mason Hart, I said. Something is wrong. She smiled like she'd heard that sentence before. Okay, she said. Can you verify your unit number? 14C. And your date of birth? I stared at her. I'm not giving. She typed anyway. Then she nodded. Okay, Mason, she said. I see your file. My file, I repeated. She turned her screen slightly, just enough that I could see. There were notes, not maintenance notes. Behavior notes. Resident has expressed recurring concerns of identity displacement. Resident exhibits pattern of paranoid ideation. Resident may attempt to contact law enforcement again. And I felt my vision narrow. What is this? Her smile didn't change. Those are notes from prior interactions. I've never. She clicked another tab. There was a signature on a digital form. My signature. And beneath it, a date. 2 months ago. I wasn't even living here 2 months ago. I moved in 6 weeks ago. She watched me carefully now. Like you watch someone who might become unpredictable. Are you feeling safe? She asked. No, I said, voice thin. No. Someone is doing this. I understand, she said. We can have our security contractor reach out. Who is your security contractor? She hesitated just long enough. Then she said, Daniel Carter. My knees went weak. I left. I walked out into the street, the cold air hitting my face like a slap. The city around me moved normally. People with coffee cups, dogs on leashes, delivery trucks. Everyone contained inside their own life, intact. Mine felt like it had been opened and resealed badly. When I got home, the lobby was quiet. The guard behind the desk looked up. Evening, he said. I stared at him. Where's Dean? I asked. He frowned. Sir? Dean, I said. The concierge. He shook his head. We don't have a concierge. Yes, you do. He smiled politely. I've been here 3 years. There's never been a concierge. I felt the floor tilt. I walked to the package room. There was a box with my name on it. Inside was a folder. Black. Clean. Like something from an office. A label on the front. Mason Hart. File 14C. I carried it upstairs like it weighed nothing and everything. In my apartment, I locked the door. Twice. I opened the folder. It contained printouts. My credit report. My medical activity. My calendar entries. My building access logs. And a page at the top. A simple document with a heading. Primary User Maintenance Agreement. My name was on it. My signature was on it. I flipped to the last page. There was a note written in neat handwriting. It was my handwriting. Stop resisting. It makes the handoffs messy. My phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. You can rest now. Another buzz. Account transfer complete. Primary user updated. I stared at the words until they stopped looking like English. Then the door behind me unlocked. Not the deadbolt. The regular lock. A soft click. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. A calm voice came from the hallway. Mason, it said. We need to talk. It wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening. It was intimate. Patient. Like a doctor in an exam room. Like someone who had been doing this longer than I had. I turned my head slowly toward the door. The deadbolt was still locked. But the knob turned anyway, and the door opened. Not forced. Opened, as if the lock was only for me. The phone buzzed one last time. Session ended, and when the screen went dark, my reflection didn't look like the person everyone else knew as Mason Hart.